very special panel, as always. Joining us on this discussion, I have Rajiv Arora, who is the co-founder of Amrapali, one of the most successful ventures born out of the need to showcase India's rich traditions in tribal jewelry, and it is a brand to reckon with today. I also have Kakuli Biswas, a senior faculty at the UID in Design Institute in Ahmedabad. She's a textile historian, has worked very, very closely with artisans across the state, and she will be talking about her experiences in really driving the agenda of revival with artisans. And we've got Archana Nair, who's the head designer and curator at People Tree, who is going to be joining us to talk about how the digital medium and e-commerce is really offering a huge amount of support to artisans and bringing online some of the award-winning artisans of the country. So really, it is a question of what next in our journey of revival of the arts and crafts of India, because it has been a journey. Because remember, in 1970s, Upul Jayakar was the first to really showcase Indian arts and crafts at the Met in New York, and then they were in through the 80s various efforts to talk about India's rich legacy of handicrafts and weaves. And today we really need another dose of that revival, not overseas, but even within India. And that's really what we're going to be talking about. Rajivji, let me start off with you. First of all, welcome to the show. Let me start off with you. It's been a tough year. And I think the one of the segments that has been hurt most is the Indian artisanal community, showing up their vulnerability in a bad year, really. So I'm going to start by talking about this. How bad has the situation been? Because we've been hearing of terrible stress across the segment, and yet that has not been adequately addressed, I feel.
See, actually, since March, it's almost 9, 10 months now. There's hardly any activity in retail sector, and because there are no customers coming, no buyers, and first 2, 3 months, although shops were closed, factories were closed, so it was a difficult year for artisans also. Because if you are not selling, what orders you will give, what you will buy, and how to sustain, so it is very, very difficult for people like us. We do exports, we do manufacturing, and we do retail. Fortunately, there is a good demand in last 4, 5 months in export sector, where we have started our manufacturing uh, in big quantities, because a little bit lower range of jewelry is now in demand around the world. But still in India, things are not so good. I think only 20-25% of the total business compared to last year people have done, because I also talk to my colleagues who are in this business, fellow exporters, fellow retailers. They all complaining. Hopefully, the year coming should be better. People say there will be a revenge buying. People will go out and they will buy a lot. But the question is, with craft, that you have taken a very, very interesting and important subject, because whenever we think about our jewelry, we talk about 5,000 years of tradition from Indus Valley civilization to present. But question comes to our mind: what Switzerland is to luxury watches, why can't India be in jewelry?
Yeah.
Even with the tremendous potential to be counted as luxury jewelry makers of the world, but India is nowhere. When we see, we have such rich tradition, craftsmanship, and heritage. So we all need to work on that. And one should have a social responsibility. Like when I started my business, my motto was learning, earning, and returning. So you learn here, you take education, you learn about your family, about your society, and then you earn both things. You earn money, and also you earn some kind of reputation in the society. And then time comes, then you should return to the society, because you are not going to take with you. So in this endeavor, we created Amrapali Museum and also a design school in Jaipur.
Right.
Gurukul
Talk
of
about
Design.
that, Rajiv, you
Yeah.
talk about all of that, but let me just get the initial comments out. Archana, I know People Tree was a product of this period really because of the attempt to, it was an attempt really to get artisans who were in dire straits access to a marketplace using digital technology and e-commerce as a platform. What was the journey like? Because I know that many of the stressed out artisanal, modules is where a lot of the work is being done as far as People Tree is concerned.
Well, on the one hand, it was extremely disheartening to see artisans who are national award winners and who've, been acclaimed over the years for the art forms that they have specialized in, come to a stage where they couldn't sustain even their basic needs. And on the other hand, what we did is reach out to them. We did outright purchases. We ensured that at least we could help them tide through this really difficult period, because we realized that their main form of sales is through events and traveling and getting their stuff from one place to the other. When we decided to start on People Tree, we realized that they need to now scale up to an online platform, and they need access to these things. And that's how People Tree came about, because we got so many artisans reached out to us, saying that they just need help monetarily. And it was very, very, very sad to actually see people who we worked with over so many years come to this stage.
Right, and that really brings me to you, Kakoli. I mean, you've done a lot of work. I think you were talking about how you worked on Bhuj, after the earthquake in 2000, and that was a great example of something positive coming out of an adversity, because many organizations actually went out there to help the women, and for the first time, many of the local women came out to earn a living through the embroidery that they were doing. It's a great case study of positive action at a time of crisis. But it comes back to, so I'm going to ask you two questions, really. First, is it what saddens one is the vulnerability of this community, despite the fact that years and years of work done to revive these arts, why is it still so vulnerable in segments?
So firstly, I'll say that the artisans are doing whatever they were doing for ages. When they started doing this, like it is a generation to generation, they are doing this craft. There is no product diversification. They are not thinking about what new to be give to the market. Yeah, this is a good time when COVID, everyone has started thinking in such a way that what we can do from the existing product which they are having. A small product, like I always focus on product diversification. It is very important. Instead of selling an entire dupatta, if from the dupatta some kind of small made-ups which is affordable for the current situation, like if no one has money to buy new things, so how to present that craft to the customer? It's very important now to tell them what is whatever product, whatever craft they are having. It is as everyone, like Archana also said that no one is buying things right now. They don't have money. So whatever they have, we have to think what thing, new things we have to come out with that particular existing
Right.
fabrics or craft or whatever things.
Right. Let's talk about the Bhuj experience. That was an adversity, and something positive came out of it. For example, what needs to be done in that context to see how we can revive? What are the must-dos really? What were the lessons from that experience?
So in earthquake, during that time, we were trying to procure whatever is existing. Like we used to collect all the rabari lehengas. Yeah. So out of that, we come out with some good pieces. We kept it in the museum. We sent it to the Delhi Museum. We sent it to the other parts of India. Other thing, we started making products out of it. During the earthquake also, they started selling their because they were not having money, so they used to started selling their products, whatever embroidery pieces they used to have. So from that time only, we used to procure as a NIFT. When we went there in a Kutch, the NIFT had been given that assignment to revive the Ajrakpur, because entire Dhamadka was demolished that time during the earthquake. our main aim was to whatever is there, what is left, we used to collect that and do some kind of treatment or some kind of things and sell it to the market and put it in the front of, so that the artisan should also start thinking in that way how the small small pieces can be done. Otherwise they used to always make big odnis or chaniyas or lehengas. These are the product which always Rawari used to do. That's
Right. So what you're saying is really first is control the situation right then, which is really get them livelihood straight up, and then is product diversification. Today, Kutch has many NGOs working, many designers working to really produce a lot of that. We will talk about that. Rajaji, let me come back to your journey. So there is
जी,
one part of this conversation which is pure survival. The other is the importance and the need to take this to the next level, really, because the fact is that if Indian art has to survive, it has to be valued and respected, and it can't be on subsistence mode all the time, right? So I want to quickly take want you to take us through your own journey in Amrapali. As I understand it, you started off as a history student, going to the remote areas of the country, started noticing the kind of traditions that existed as far as jewelry making. And then that's when your documentation process gave rise to the need to create Amrapali. So take us through that journey, because I think in that there could be many answers.
जी. So you rightly said I did my post graduation in history, ancient Indian history, did my MBA. I come from a professionals family. My grandfather was the first batch MBBS in the country. So he was a doctor, and my father was a lawyer. The whole family is a doctors and lawyers family. And because of my love for art, craft, heritage, and culture, I traveled a lot, and I thought that I should make this as my business also because this is my liking. So it became my profession. Amrapali started. Uh, Amrapali name was also, this was the first name we started in 78, uh, because she was a character of Indian history, famous for her beauty and for her art. And she was the first woman disciple of Lord Buddha. So she had all the three things. Meaning you know very well because you have been to beauty pageants. So what people want, they 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 want they select a person who is talented, who is intelligent, uh, who is artistic, and who is beautiful. So she had all these three combinations. So I thought Amrapali is a good name. But I never thought that we will come into jewelry business. We started with handicrafts. So my background is with crafts. I've dealt with wooden crafts, ivory, sandalwood, paintings, clothes, embroidery. Then I have a collection of textiles. And slowly, when we were talking now about Kutch and Bhuj, I used to have Gujarati women coming to me with old textile, and they also used to bring some old silver jewelry. And I thought that these are going to be finished because, first of all, we don't have a system of hallmarking. That's very important because you don't know the age. If you go to UK or if you go to France or Austria, every silver piece is marked, so you know where it is made, when it is made, who was the maker. It was not here. And whenever they needed money, they used to sell their jewelry. So it used to come. I thought it is very important to preserve it. So started preserving that art, and slowly this collection became a little bigger collection. Now we have 4,000 pieces on
It's
display
now part of the museum, the
in
Amrapali
our
Museum.
museum, and it is world's largest collection of Indian tribal silver jewelry and artifacts. No other museum you will find such a variety. And I traveled myself to, when we talk about Gujarat, to Rajanpur, Limri, Bachau, Disa, Gandhidham. She knows, Claire knows all the name. And to, which is now Chhattisgarh, to Korapur, Bhavani, Patna, Murisa, everywhere lived with the tribals, and even bought jewelry by bartering. Because when you go, they used to have weekly markets where they used to come, the tribals used to come and they used to sell things and procure something else. They used to got some homegrown product and maybe barter with bangles, if they require
In
it. So I've been,
Amrapali, Rajivji, are you reviving many of these old designs in the Amrapali store itself?
so,
And
so
because what we are sitting on is also a great repository of design.
this is what I'm saying. We started making collections afterwards, taking inspiration from the silversmithing, goldsmithing. What we have seen, what in my collection is, you must have heard about. We did a collaboration with Manish Arora, designer. All the jewelry which he made was inspired by Amrapali Museum collection, and there we also we came out with a book in 20 years back. There was an exhibition in UK, Chandrika. So the other collection, Chandrika, is also totally inspired by our collection. So this is a great source of inspiration and also creativity. And you see enameling. You take enameling as a subject to talk. So now we do enameling. It used to be done on gold. Then we started doing on silver. Now we do enameling on base metal also, and which we sell in bulk on online product. But by this, we are providing employment to thousands of people. There are 2,000 craftsmen work for Amrapali now. 2,000. I think this is the most important thing we could do because revenue is not important. Important is how many people you can provide employment. And
Sure.
I started alone. And when 2,000 people get roti kapda makan, I think that is very important. So we try to revive the art of filigree, art of enameling, various different arts, and we try to give them latest tools, latest thinking, and also to create product which is world class.
Right.
So we are going to take another level. So
Right.
when we talk all the
Kapoorji, if I can bring you in here, we've done a lot of work on Gujarat, chronicling a lot of the arts, and we've also worked across the country. Uh, the number of arts that we don't know enough of. So I think the first phase of revival has brought out one set of art forms. You have the Madhubani, you have the Ajrak, you have block printing, Sanganeri printing, etc., which are famous. The Kachi embroidery is famous. But that itself only denotes a very small proportion of the real arts of India because every state, every district has its own art. So in Gujarat, what has your focus been and how have you kind of opened up new art forms? What is the process?
So, as I already said, that key product diversification is the one thing. So, who are going to do the product diversity? The designers. First, if I want to revive the craft, very, very strong message I want to give to all the young designers or design students. They have to think about the product diversification. So, because of that, the young generation is not taking that much of interest in the craft sector. Seeing that in our craft, all the design institute had added in their curriculum a design, one semester dedicated to the craft sector. So students can go to research that particular craft, develop new products, understand their problem and give some solution. So how it has happened, it has been designed that such a way the students will stay with the artisans, understand their livelihood, understand their problems very closely and give the solutions. And through that only the students will pay the respect to that particular craft.
Right.
Yeah. So in that way we have to revive. Once the craft is get popular, they will going to make it. There's no requirement of any product, what you say, to make them popular in the
Right.
in the next.
I'm going to take two examples from Gujarat, which we have also worked on. So,
Yeah, khadar weaving.
yes, kharat weaving, and the other is rogan. So let's start with kharat weaving. This was a traditional art form that herders used. It was used for camels and herding.
Camel wool.
It was used with wool. But what it has happened now is it's got a new lease of life because it's so popular in countries like Australia and the US. Because it's really now becoming a canvas to talk about oral histories. I think that's a fabulous intervention that happened. So take us through that kind of example.
So the Kharar, only one family is doing this weaving in Kutch. in Kukumari village. So this family were doing only the camel wool, and they're making these kind of knotted carpet, which we say, and it's a very interesting knotted carpet they make, and very few people know about that. They used to put the motifs. If you see the interesting patterns and the motif, they use their daily life, day-to-day journeys. Somewhere like the kettles and things like that. So this very interesting thing, and very limited natural colors they use. So we need to think, because in our Indian people are not aware of color weaving, whereas they are exporting to the Australia and UK. So, and thanks to Live History Channel, they had documented this thing, and they really got a new customer out from seeing these movies of your thing. So I'm constantly giving them designs as per the requirement of the market. Whenever they make new product, they used to send us, and we used to get them in the social media page. So this is one, and the Rogan. It's a very interesting. All of you ever heard about the Rogan craft, and our Prime Minister is really given a very good promo to this Rogan craft. When they had given our all the foreign delegates, when that American president had come, he had given all the delegates this Rogan art, and suddenly it has been popular. So
sometimes it needs support. Sometimes it needs support, and it also needs storytelling, right, Archana? Because we worked together on the Bidri ware, for instance. What fascinated me about Bidri ware was the fact that when we saw at pieces at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, or the International Museum, we saw exquisite pieces of Bidri work, and we couldn't find it over there. So take us through that whole journey of your journey of discovery in Bidar, because I think it's also a telling fact that we don't know our stories because we also don't tell our stories properly.
Absolutely, Minnie. So before we actually interacted with the artisans in Bidar, we decided to understand where their inspirations came from. And so we visited the Bidar fort, the Ashtur tombs, the Rangeen Mahal, and that's where we saw all the beautiful patterns which were being used in their architecture, transcending into the Bidri work that was happening locally. Now, the fact is that a lot of us don't even know a simple thing, that Bidri work can only be done in Bidar, perhaps, because it gets its black color from the soil found in certain places of the Bidar fort. This is something which is so fascinating that I think it's something that people need to know, that it's not just a black metal, it's been blackened by a certain reaction that takes place. Unfortunately, the work involves a lot of labor, as well as silver, gold, copper. So the patrons, which were earlier the Persians and the royals who bought these and patronized these, aren't there anymore. So the craft has had to be watered down, and it's come down to a level where they're trying to make it as accessible to people as possible. But I think the importance here is to try and revive and create certain pieces which we couldn't find, and that's what we tried to do, working with the artisans like the mehtabi. It's a certain style which is impossible to find right now. So it's about revival, and at the same time understanding that it has to be accessible to people. It cannot be in lakhs and crores. So it's kind of trying to create that balance.
What is also interesting is, as a history student, Kakoli, I never learned about textiles. But when I look at the murals of Ajanta and I see ikat work, which we actually filmed in Pochampalli and, in Andhra and Telangana, it's amazing that the ikat tradition that you see on the walls of Ajanta are still being used. And it's such a amazingly innovative weave that, there is so much of back and forth. A great example is the Patan Patola, which we have also chronicled, which few people realize was one of India's most famous exports. The reason you don't find too much of Patan Patola within India was because it was so prized and it was so popular across Southeast Asia, right? that all the royals in Southeast Asia used to use it. So, in many senses, Kakuli, it's also about storytelling. So, how do you tackle this with students really? Because what Live History India is doing is taking these stories to a larger bunch of people, a larger audience. But it's also important that students learn this history of and the significance of this legacy.
So that is why we said that we send our students to the artisans village. They should understand the craft. Better understanding is only possible when they're going to start live with them. What is the kind of situation they are facing, the kind of circumstances, or the place, the product has been developed. And every, like India has quite a lot of different kind of seasons. The rainy season, this kind of product is not able to done because of the moisture or the very heat. The summer, Gujarat is a very hot place because of the summer, like patola. It's a silk yarn they use, and because there's very hot, the silk yarn break. So the students only will able to understand when they're going to be there, understand their problem, when is the good time, or the kind of temperature, the kind of dyes, the kind of technology need to be added. It is very important to them to understand and give the solution to that. And they should, once they want to start understanding their craft, they will be able to start paying respect to that craft, and they're going to take it forward in their designs. All the big designers from abroad, they are doing Gucci, Armani, everyone is using our craft, but we as an Indian, we are not paying that much of respect to our own craft.
Right. That's something that stood out for me, Rajivji, because when I went to Kalna, for instance, I met a Jamdani weaver who was one of the biggest suppliers to Gucci. Now, in India, the perception of craft is one of, for the masses, a more economical version, I think. While internationally, there's a recognition of the fineness of Indian craft and there is value to it. So, should we also change the way we look at Indian craft as not something that just is something to support an artisan, but really something to celebrate the handiwork and give value to the artisan?
You're absolutely right, Mini. We Indians, like when I talk about jewelry, we never sell jewelry as a piece of art. Never used to. The other jewelers, what they do, it is sold as a commodity by giving breakups for labor charge, gold cost, and how much it costs. Like I always say, nobody asks a painter how much paint is used or how much fabric you have used in this, and you pay for the artistry, for the jewelry, for the skills. I think that is very important. We should charge a premium for handcrafted jewels, and then also you can pay good remuneration, salary, whatever. If they are working in your workshop, you pay them good salary. If you are outsourcing their work, you can pay them handsomely. That's very, very important because this benefit, what you earn, passes to the artisan. And if you don't charge a premium for this matchless artistry and skills, see, master gem cutters, enamelers, they will be finished. They will go to other jobs. We see after pandemic also, there was a study of UN I was reading the other day. We have lost in last 4 decades, 30% artisans are declining because they go for casual labors. In Jaipur, people who used to cut gemstones, they are pulling rickshaws, or they are used in informal economy, as labor for doing maybe house construction or whatever. So what a waste of a fantastic resource. We are the only living culture in the world. If you travel to China, travel to UK, travel to US, travel to France, where you will see someone wearing what Kakuli is wearing sari, a traditional Indian dress. No one wears their own dresses. We are living culture. When they were making movie Troy, Warner Brothers approached Amrapali to create jewelry, similar jewelry. The Greco-Roman people used to have. They have big, like we see in Gujarat, in Kutch, the hand pieces and baju buns, and also the head pieces. Because we have a living culture, skilled people, they call it chud. So we could make it, for the warriors very easily. The technique is for us very, very easy. Every village, they used to make chud at that time in Rajasthan and in Gujarat. So we are a living culture. We should be proud. We can show the way to the world, And India has great potential, and especially Rajasthan and Gujarat, two states, so rich in arts and crafts. Every village, every town there's a different craft. So we need to work really hard. People need to be sensitized. And if you know, I was chairman of ISM Tourism Development Corporation 20 years back, and I started uh, Jaipur Heritage International Festival, and also which has become now famous literature festival. I started at that time after my tenure was finished as a chairman of Rice and Tourism. We started the Heritage Walk in Jaipur. All these things are very, very important,
Interconnected. I think art and crafts are a living example of India's legacy and history. And that's what
Exactly.
Get Live History India also covered because it's very important because that's living history for us, right?
Yes.
Archana, 2 points that Rajiv ji made. One is really the fact that one of the biggest crises that even we have seen across the country is how the younger generation of the artisan community is not staying back in their legacy crafts because there isn't enough money to be made over there. Second is what are you doing about it at People Tree? How are you broad basing this, and how are you actually tapping into the diversity of the Indian craft?
See, firstly, I think, like you had said earlier, it's about sensitizing people about the craft forms. Unless people know what they're buying, firstly, I think we need to stop calling it craft. They are pieces of art, and people have to appreciate them for the art that goes into it. These are made by people who have learned these over hundreds and hundreds of years. You and I cannot make this. And if this dies out with this generation, it will never come back. We'll only hear about it or see pictures of it in books of history or on the internet. So we need to realize how important this is. For a simple fact that, we need to also probably rethink about, what fashion is, what our homes need to look like. I mean, we all are moving towards a modern look, a clutter-free look, but don't associate our art forms with any of that. So it's about trying to bridge that gap, to try to tell people that we can have a modern home, but you can have a spectacular piece of artwork. You have a small home, you can't have a big room with a lot of deities and you want to do your elaborate pujas for a Diwali. Bring home a piece of a pichwai or a beautiful Pattachitra. A Pattachitra started, for example, when artists started painting the deity on cloth, that is patta, during the time when they wanted to give the deity a break from the annual ritual bath. It's such a beautiful story that needs to be told, and it's not just another art form which someone has labored over. It's got a historical value to it, it's got a beauty to it, and they are spectacular pieces which make a home look outstanding. So I think that's one aspect of it. I think people need to look at craft as art, and while we are trying to introduce these pieces, we've also been very, very specific in trying to keep the art forms to their original techniques. That's another thing which we saw is dying out. So, for example, Kerala mural paintings. The original mural paintings were done in on temple walls, and the version of it that was coming, which was accessible to people, were all on acrylic colors, with acrylic colors on canvas. So we've actually worked with artisans to ensure, which is a very painstaking process, that we revive the original techniques, because as important as the mural art is also the colors and the techniques with which these colors are made. Each of them is a unique process, and it's very important to maintain that. You cannot make it so mass that you forget the very nuances that go into a craft. So at the same time, keep the affordability, keep the craft alive, keep the techniques alive, and that's the balance we need to look at.
Yeah. So we've got a lot of viewer questions also, but Kakuli, I'm going to ask you about the same question. Is it time that we gave more respect to our artisans and we made a conscious effort to shift the focus not just on survival, but really on nurturing these artisans so that they can earn better and their children can continue the legacy?
Exactly. So, as a craft historian, or I'm very much attached with the rural sector of the village. So, it is like my observation that these craft has been practiced, or the art is in practice from uh, age very old time, like hundreds years of practice. They are doing the same kind of craft, and that time they were not as much of relevant or prevalent designs were required. Yeah. So the current time now, when as a designer or a design educator, I will say that it's time to look at the product. What is the market demand? And accordingly, we have to give our artisans, our craftsmen, the product ideas, the color, because all the artisans cannot afford or keep a designers. It's a designer's duty to go and talk to, give them some kind of input about the colors, designs, trends, focus, because they are not are all into, they are practicing what they know.
Right. But
Yeah.
that is at one level, Kakuli. But Archana, the work that you do, for example, with the inlay workers of Agra, which is the inlay work that you see in the Taj. What I also notice that there is a lot of innovation at that level also, because there are a lot of product innovations that are really working. Some artisans are really innovating and becoming very savvy to the market.
Absolutely. So the Taj Mahal is, I think it's in a monument which appeals to a lot of sensibilities, not just within India, around the world. And I think the artisans there have done a great job in trying to create products where they've uh, kept the traditional techniques alive and use traditional motifs and made products which are utilitarian. So you have trays and coasters and beautiful gemstones in the same parchinkari work that they've been doing over the years. And I think that's where the innovation, like Kakuri is saying, your design innovation and finding out what the customer needs. So apart from the fact that we have to have a lot of design innovation, I think the other aspect to it is also that we need to see our crafts as a premium product, not as a mass product. I think a lot of people look at crafts and they don't understand. They think it's just a statement that, oh, it's taken 6 days to make this piece. There's no value for it. There's absolutely no respect for the work gone into it. I think that shift in mindset has to be very, very strong.
Rajeshji, let me bring you in here. Amrapali is a premium product. It is
जी
a product where you have to pay top dollar or top rupee for. So, how did you ensure? Also, of course, you have the underlying fact that it is gold and silver and semi-precious stones, etc.
I
How did
I
you
I
consciously make this decision that it's going to be something that is going to be valued, and hence you have to charge premium? How was
I agree with Archana what she was saying completely, because craft, people think in India, and the way we present it is looks like very, I should not use word cheap, but it's presented in a way, if Kakuli was associated with Gurjari, when I started, you were talking about Purple Jacker. I was also in the board for Crafts Museum for many, many years. I've worked with Matan Singh and Jyotindra and everyone. uh, I started selling, my first bill in 78 was to the CCIC, Central Caucasus Industries Emporium. And then afterwards, we started supplying to Rajasthan Handicraft Emporium, Rajasthali, what it was called. And when I was supplying there, the way they used to present, I was never happy. They, I think we need to do a very good branding and marketing of our product. Like we were talking about Agra marble work, inlay work. Pietre Dura Italian is the name. All over the world, people know about it. And because they have marketed it so well, we are very poor in marketing, in packaging, the way we want to present ourselves. So one fine day, about 30 years back, I was looking after the newspaper, and I came to know that Rajasthan Handicrafts Emporium did the sale, say 95 lakhs rupees in the whole year. I'm talking about 1980, 85. I said, I do more sales than the Rajasthan Emporium, and I have a tiny small shop, 300 square feet shop at that time in Chimiliwala market. So I thought that from today, I am not going to supply to Rajasthan Emporium. Sorry to say, because the I thought, no, I will take this whole thing to next level. Whatever I will produce, I will brand it properly, brand as Jaipur, whatever I am making, it should go to the best people. The best people should wear it. You will not believe, Amrapali doesn't have a budget of advertising. I've never did any advertising in 40 years. All the jewelers, they do Akshaya Tritiya and New Year and Diwali and what advertising. My best advertising is people who wear it, and they are photographed. People talk about it, and I do jewelry for movies, Bollywood, Hollywood, and whatever, for fashion shows, for the events, for making jewelry for Mr. and Mrs. Obama when they come to India, or Clintons, or recently Mrs. Trump, she was wearing Amrapali, or Gordon Brown, or whoever, and never approach them. They, when they read, when they talk, how they come to know about Amrapali, because if you put it in the right way, if they search
It's all
about
about
India,
positioning.
so this is very important. People should understand how to present the product, and that is only possible when you also upscale it, good quality, not cheap material, and we should try. I used to sell to people who used to sell in the flea market in Switzerland or in France. They call it flea market. And the same time, I used to sell to Beaumarchais and also La Penton or the Globus in Switzerland. And slowly, I thought, no, Amrapali, when I started, my shop was in a Chemiliwala market. It's a very, very tiny touristic market in Jaipur. Then I thought, whenever I'll start a shop, it should be in the best place. So, Panchbatti in Jaipur, it is the most premium place in India. I bought shops in Oberoi when they were making in Nariman Point. I did not do any other shop till I get that shop. Khan Market, we were the first jewelers. It was the most expensive retail space. Then in Harrods and in Selfridges. So you have to position yourself in a right way. People start looking product in a different way.
Right.
When Indians going to London, go to Harrods, when they see Amrapali there sitting next to Bushra, Cartier, or Harry Winston, they come to India. They are very proud when they see Amrapali there and they buy here. What
So
we are talking
Amrapali is a
about,
great example, Rajivji, of a premium Indian traditional art form which has got a premium mark. So, Kakuli, is it very important? Because I really believe, and I'm really with Rajiv ji and Archana here, I really believe one of the biggest issues is really unless you have these products at a premium, you will never be able to make the difference in the artisan's life. Because if he's going to live on subsistence, then there'll always be a better job for the educated next generation to go to. So it's our mandate to actually hope and pray that these products get their due respect. Now, how can we do that, and at what level? I mean, how much interest is there among young designers to go and work in these craft places? Because it's a process, like you rightly said. It's about product differentiation, it's diversification, it's about new ideas to see how best to use the traditional. So, how are you approaching it?
So, being a design institute, we have quite a lot of different branches. So we have a visual communication department. There also, the visual communication, they are also going to do the craft documentation. Their point of vision of seeing that craft is how you're going to picture, how you're going to put it in a front of the market. So visual designers are going to understand their package. They look for the packaging of that particular craft. They're going to make some kind of tagline for them to put it in the market.
Really, it's about communication as well as it's about storytelling.
Yeah, exactly. So different discipline is going for the craft market, craft documentation, and seeing on their point of view. So that if the product department is going, product students they're going to look for the tools and the techniques.
Mm.
If the furniture designs are going, how the furniture or the interiors, where we can do that particular craft, where we can put. So the different discipline has the same kind of course of craft documentation, and they're seeing that particular craft in their point of view.
Right. Archana, one thing that has changed is in the 70s and 80s, India had to go and tell the story overseas, right, to get the premium segment activated. But today, I think one of the big advantages India has is the aspirational class, which has got a lot of disposable income. Now, we keep talking about slogans like Atmanirbhar Bharat and, buy Indian and stuff like that. But what we don't talk about enough is how Indians, instead of splurging on a Gucci or a Louis Vuitton, should be actually splurging on a Amrapali or a Patachitra or a Pichwai. I mean, that is the kind of mindset change that needs to be done, right? So I want to get both yours and Rajivji's views on this very quickly before I start taking the audience questions.
Absolutely, Minnie. I completely agree with you. The thing is that, like, it goes back to what we said earlier. We don't see the premiumness in our crafts. The minute we start seeing that, a simple thing, when a Christian Dior does Zardozi work on their gown, it's considered premium. The same Zardozi work sold in a Chandni Chowk shop is considered tacky. It's as simple as that. You just need to slap on that label, market it in the right way, and show it in that way. But our crafts are exquisite. There are no parallels to it in the world. There are certain techniques, for example, the Dokra craft. It's a 4,000-year-old technique. First traces of it were found in the Indus Valley civilization in Mohenjo-daro. I mean, we're sitting on a gold mine of history, of crafts, of stories, and people don't understand it. People don't see it for how invaluable these things are. I can recreate something sitting in a factory, but I can't recreate something made by hand by a person who's learned it over the years, over centuries, and nobody can replicate it. No machines can do this work. And I think that's where it becomes one of a kind. No two pieces made by hand, even if they look similar, can ever be the same. So
Right.
we're talking about a very unique product when we buy something that's handcrafted.
Right.
And there's another aspect to this. For the younger generation, we're all, especially during this lockdown, we've all been talking about sustainability. I think our art forms are the very crux of sustainability. Every ingredient comes from the earth, whether it's the colors. For example, a simple thing like lark bangles. It's made out of resin left by an insect on trees and collected, and that's melted and created into a lark bangle. It's something so simple but so beautiful. We have a repository of art forms. Each of our art forms, if you pick, have always been kind to nature and have always taken from nature and given back. So, sustainability has been very much a part of our craft traditions since time immemorial. It's not something that's a newfangled idea, it's the way we were as a culture and as a tradition.
Right. And that's very important to say, especially, I must tell you that I remember recently when I went to Sikkim, I was appalled that and I had been there, I'd gone there after a gap of about 15 years. I was appalled that none of the traditional art forms were actually available in the markets. The markets are full of China-made products. Now, that also indicates that unless we actually nurture these things, it's not going to happen. Of course, there are a few people who are trying to develop this, but Rajiv ji, you will agree. I mean, Sikkim and Ladakh and that entire area is full of such fabulous art forms, jewelry, and it's really sad to see what is happening out there. Let's quickly take out some questions from our audience. Sarita Ragade has this comment and question for you, Kakoli. She says that I agree with Kakoli about diversification. Design students should have compulsory immersion in handicrafts and GI products, which is the the global indicator, geo indicator products. Contemporary weaves and designs will catch the eye of young consumers. So, do you think that the design students play a very important role as go between the old arts and the revival of these arts to a new premium segment? Kakoli.
Yeah, it is very important to maintain the craft look or the image, the essence of that particular craft. And then you think about the product diversification. Sometimes I see the students are working on some craft and there's no essence of it. In Kalamkari, they are doing some kind of modern designs and on that, and they're saying that's a Kalamkari. It's just a technique they're using. They're
Yeah,
losing the essence of that particular craft. So it's very important to understand and then do the product diversification.
right.
Without,
Another interesting question comes from Lagnajit Sahu, who has asked you, Kakoli, that he was commenting on your statement that there are only one or two families which are still, doing craft like Rogan and Karat. He says, why can't we include this in the curriculum of schools really to teach at the elementary level some form of local art form? So I must tell you, in Bihar, we worked with on the Manjusha art, and one of the aspects which I found very fascinating is how elementary school children were shown how to do the manjusha, which is a kind of a freehand doodle kind of it's got traditional motifs, etc. But it became so popular because kids were doing it. So is there does this need to be made into a curriculum project, Kakuli?
yes, we should include, it's a very good suggestion, and our education should include our craft, because we should start giving these kind of knowledge, because we have in our curriculum SUPW or some kind of hand knitting or weaving, these kind of techniques. Why not art? Why not art there only? Yeah, so embroideries or our own Madhubani paintings. And so in the drawing and painting, why we are not teaching our students that? Why we are not introducing all those pichwai or far painting or matani pechedis, how the colors has been done? It's such a nice chemistry, how we are making colors from the vegetables. So the students, if from the school level, they will know how the vegetable dyes are there from the Indus Valley, how the aal has been used, how the indigo has been used, or from the iron rust, how we are making colors. It's very important, and they're going to start paying respect to from that generation.
Rajivji, there's one question for you, saying that when we talk about success stories like Amrapali, we only hear of the successes, but not of the challenges. What were the challenges that you faced when you were trying to put together Amrapali and create this brand?
Starting and making a brand without any money, very difficult. And I did my MBA in marketing, and they taught us, when you design something very interesting, then skim the cream. So they say that if you make a good design, flood the market, because people will copy you, and you will have to earn in first 1 year or 6 months or 2 months, then something will come in the market. We did exactly opposite. I started using old jewelry pieces, making one of a kind pieces. So 90% of my product initially was handmade. I used to do myself, taking old piece, converting into earrings. So they were individualistic. And all my customers were from Reena Roy, Dimple Kapadia. At that time, they used to come to my small shop, to Kiran Thakur Singh, who is now Kiran Kher. They all wanted that this piece should not be with anyone else. So when you want to make a brand and not making too many pieces, that is why I always say that if you want to buy the best of Amrapali jewelry, don't come only to Jaipur. Visit my Bangalore shop also, Delhi shop, or Calcutta or Ahmedabad, wherever, because we make pieces which are not common. We don't make in too much quantity, and they're individualistic pieces. So these are all difficulties to create a brand, but that also gave us a lot of leverage, because they were unique pieces. Now people, because it's a aspirational brand, we have online Tribe Amrapali, where we make similar pieces. So anyone who wants to buy any Indian woman, because they all feel there's a princess in them when they wear Amrapali. I always say like that. So they buy that pieces. So It
Sure.
was a difficult time when I went first time to a banker to take a loan for 10,000 rupees in 1980. He said, "What can you give as a collateral?" I said, "I have no money. I started with my pocket money. What collateral I can give? I won't ask my father to give the house for this." So, such difficulties we faced.
Right.
But if you work hard, if you are honest in your dealing, if you satisfy customers, and also a good eye for the product, the quality control is important. I wanted to continue when Archana left and you started questioning. I remember around 14, 15 years back, a gentleman came in white t-shirt in my cabin at Panch Batti, and he introduced me. I am Kelvin Klein. I was surprised. Who is he? And he said, I am Kelvin Klein. I heard so much about you, and I have come to see what you have. And
Wow.
then for 2 days, he was sitting in Amrapali looking at my textile collection, not the jewelry. And what he was saying that we have such rich variety of art and crafts in India, we can't believe it. And after 2 days, he had his birthday. So he said that I did not tell anyone in India that I am here. So you can invite the press at Amrapali and we will celebrate my birthday. So I want to give you this thank you, note. And my next collection of home textile will be devoted to Amrapali collection.
Wow.
So much we have, but we really don't know how to present it. That is very, very important.
That's very sad, actually. Archana, there's another question which actually dovetails into this one. So I'm going to take this with you. What can we do to get indigenous crafts from the far corners of India to the mainstream markets? There are such great craft traditions in states like Nagaland, Odisha, etc., and we don't even know about these. Is there lack of awareness affecting the craft market as well?
Absolutely, it is affecting. And I think we need more initiatives like People Tree, where we've, speaking of Nagaland, worked with the Naga Weavers, the loin loom weavers, which are basically a very old tradition of backstrap weaving. And I don't think a lot of people even know about it. They might have heard of Naga shawls, but the women there are so enterprising and so savvy in the sense that they have reinvented the looms and try to make products that are more appropriate for the current market. The weave itself is extremely modern in its sensibilities because it's got basically pops of red, white, blue, and we have products like the coat pad, which is again a very, very beautiful and unknown craft form from Orissa, where again the main color of red comes from the al tree, like Kakuli had said. So yes, we have to, and some earlier today I was asked how many crafts do you think there are in India, and I don't know the answer to this because I don't know if anybody on this panel does, because like I said, there are so many that have died over the generations that we may never even know of, may have heard, seen traces of it in books, but um, it's our heritage, it's what we need to be proud of, it's something that we have to preserve, and preservation starts with acknowledging how great these are, and
Absolutely agree more.
giving it its due, and promoting it at every level, whether it's in India, outside India. Talk about it, be proud of it, flaunt it.
Right. This is a question come from Nakulan, and I'm going to ask both Kakuli and Rajiv ji about this. He's made an interesting point. He said it will be interesting to see the balance between the evolution of new art form versus the preservation of the old in a year like this. That's always a balance, right? Like Kakuli, you've been speaking about it. How do you preserve the old while also innovating to the new? So that balancing act is going to be crucial. Is it especially crucial in a year like this?
Yeah, yeah, it is very important to preserve the existing craft for our next generation to see what the legacy we are having,
Hmm.
and changing the product, coming out with a new product for the current market without losing the essence is very important. We have to create a market for the new product, and the scopes are wider. So that is very important to see the craft maintain the legacy, maintain their essence, and think for the new product.
Right. So how do you draw this balance, Rajivji, with the traditional forms that you have? But I know that you work with an army of designers as well, the youngsters who are driving the new lines of Amrapali. How do you do this balance?
See, very important. You also know about history. History is not only story. History also gives us so much learning. So if you preserve the art form, you learn a lot. For the new designers, I think uh, what people used to do, what artisans used to make, is a great learning. And also, we know that hand craftsmanship has become so expensive around the world. If we have those artists who can weave such a way, or who can create a sculpture, or who can create a jewelry, the master craftsmen, we should appreciate that. And with this pandemic, there are so many losses, but what I feel personally, that technologically, we are now maybe 2 or 3 years ahead now. We never used to do these webinars.
Mhm.
I would not never have met you all, if there's no webinar. Otherwise, in a normal way, we have to travel to Delhi or Mumbai or Ahmedabad to meet someone. But now the world has become really a global village. We used to call it global village, but now it's really a global village. So we should be proud what we have. First of all, that's very, very important. What we produce. So what Archana was saying is truly right, that our homes, our maybe our workshops, factories, offices. If we have Indian craft, proudly if we put that, instead of going and buying something from Sweden or Japan or Thailand or China, whatever, we should be proud what our artisans they do. First of all, we should start giving them respect and to go ahead. I'm sure that we have a great future. People are understanding this. NIFT, NID, all of them are doing a great job. It's a learning process, but try to be innovative and don't try to copy West. That is very important. So with Amrapali also, people will copy you. You should be leader in the market. You should try to innovate. If they copy, I think that's the best way. They when they copy you, I think this is the best way of flattering. So they understand. Don't don't worry about that. Just start creating. You will not believe we have a team of designers, but every single piece of design goes from my eye or Mr. Rajesh Ajmera's eye, my partner. Every single piece. Or Tarang, my son, who has joined the business. So it is also very important because it is not just you come and design. What I have learned, I will have to teach that. I will have to tell that particular designer why the old pieces were even finished properly in the last. If you see that class, how good they used to make when they make the jewelry, and how proportionate it was, when they used to make. So these things are also very, very important. It's always a
Bringing the
learning.
best of the past. Of course, Archana has been kind enough to offer a discount to all of our viewers. So do support the arts and crafts of India through People Tree. But Archana, tell me, People Tree is a product of this COVID lockdown. What were the challenges, or was this an opportunity really to reach out to these artisans?
It was both. It was both. I think we got a lot of artisans who were completely disconnected from the world, except for their travels to cities and selling their wares. We got them, on online. We've pretty much done all our design innovation under these circumstances, which is very challenging because these are artisans who don't know how to read or write. They don't know how to operate a phone, leave alone understand messages. There were language constraints and all the other constraints that aren't so big when you are working across each other. But the silver lining is, uh, along with us, they've probably had the ability to now reach out to other people whom they can sell to. It's not just about People Tree, it's about promoting them at every level. So if by doing, through this process, if they've been able to gain something out of it, it's the fact that they can now reach out to a lot more people. And that's what People Tree aims to do eventually. We keep talking about making the art famous, But at People Tree, we also want to make the craftsmen famous. So if you have a famous painter like an M.F. Hussain, we have famous painters like Niranjan Morana, who's a national award winner. How many of us know him? He's a Patachitra artist. Sushil Soni. We have so many people who have been doing this for years. So it's also about making them famous, and we've sensitized them and told them that that's our end goal. We have a long wait before we reach there, but eventually the artisans have to be people who are also the innovators. So while we will have designers collaborating with artisans, the next level would be where the artisans itself understand design, understand markets, and that's the kind of sensitization People Tree would eventually like to bring in. We are at a very nascent stage right now, but we will get there, and we hope that we will have support from everybody at all stages for this.
Right. Let me wind down this discussion with a very important point. I think the one takeaway that we are getting from this is really that we need to respect the craftsmen more than just what we do today. It's really about recognizing their work, also making sure that they get compensated for the work that they do, because art cannot survive without patronage. And to make sure that these legacies survive, we need to make a conscious effort towards that. Kakuri, Archana raised a very important point of the number of crafts in India, right? At the very core level, when we work on crafts, many cases we are doing primary research. We are actually going and doing primary research. I think documentation itself needs a lot of work. There are some attempts that have been made to do documentation, but really, what proportion of India has not been covered in the documentation? What are the challenges there?
So all the design students are definitely NID is such an old design student from 70s. Their students are getting the craft has been documented, but what level? There quite a lot of research has also been done. The new product diversification or product merging is also done. Not only Indian designers or researchers have documented the craft, also the foreign designers and the scholars are also documented the Indian craft. It's always been the fascinated of Indian document the Indian craft, but in what level, it's a big question. Our students on the given time, they used to this the entire module which we design in the craft documentation or research, it is to understand the particular craft. It is not in a depth of how the entire process has been done, or from where it has been started, and these things like that. Yeah, so the designers, young designers need to, or the research scholars need to rethink about that, to document the craft properly.
Right. Rajivji, what as a journalist, what has amazed me is that when you talk about policy making, for years we've had policies to support these artisans. Why hasn't it worked? Because at the same time, I mean, if we are still in 2020 talking about subsistence crisis, which we spoke about in 2000, my question, and that's a question that I've often wondered: what has not worked? You've seen both sides of it, right? I mean, from the government's point of view, from the craft, council's point of view, from a private entrepreneur's point of view. What are your insights?
See, education, technique, design skills, they have, but they need to taught the new way of doing it, which we lack. And also, till they get a kind of a recognition in the society, because still uh, the work is done by different communities or castes, and we still have this social system, whether he is a Sunni or he is a Muchi or he is a Junaha. This should not be there, because we should not go by social hierarchy, one system which was made before. I think for a painter, for an artist, he is like Goddess Saraswati, should be prayed, should be as a guru, should be honored. This is very, very important. Till we are educated in this way, this cannot be up, because whatever he does, he's a Kagji. He does with the Kagaj work. We don't think that he's a master craftsman. And the creations are ageless. timeless, priceless. We should know, and they should be given that kind of honor, prestige in the society. So we have to this need to be change in the thinking. I think the new generation is much more aware. They are not about the caste, but very bad of Indian politics. When we talk about it, we always bring caste in forefront, and this is not good for our society. In 21st century, you're right. After 70, 80 years of independence, is still, if we call about substance and we want some small uh, market, what we say, small exhibitions to give them some kind of a market, is this is not the way
Exactly.
it's going to be done. So I think government cannot do it. I believe very,
But
very
I
strongly.
think it's private entrepreneurship that will make this change. Because many,
Exactly.
many more brands that we need of premiumness that can talk about this quality, this high quality
Many,
thing.
I am surprised. Give me five names which are considered international brands in any field: textiles, leather, jewelry, any other craft. If you go to Rodeo Drive, or if you go to Champs Elysees, where is any Indian brand? There's brands coming from Japan. People are going and making big.
Right.
So somebody is making shoes and he's becoming so big. Jimmy Choo and everyone. We could not take a brand.
No, no, I
We
completely agree. I
There's
think
some
India is ready
fundamental
to fight.
problem
And
with
also,
our
I think
in our
that
minds.
historical context to it. The challenge is that we've been an outsourcing center thanks to colonial policies, right? That's how our great artisanal tradition, which by the way was the reason why for 2000 years India was the hub of all trading, because people wanted to come and get a slice of India's great luxurious products. We turned into a supplier, and sadly, after 70 years of independence, we are still the supplier to a Gucci or a Louis Vuitton or
Exactly.
international brands. We are
Exactly.
not creating brands of our own. But Archana, I think, sometimes I feel this is the cusp of change also because of two, three things that are happening. First, a lot of the baggage that Rajiv ji speaks about, this caste equations, this baggage of who these artisans are, the societal differences are melting in this new India. The second is look at the kind of disposable income Indians have today. They can spend. We don't need to wait for an international market to open up for us. And the third is the advantage of digital e-commerce. So, how do you think the new change is going to be driven given this? What is your hope for that?
Well, we just hope that see, it's about giving artisans the next level. I think one of the reasons they haven't come up is because they still belong to uh, financially poorer backgrounds, and they aren't able to rise up. It's about giving them the opportunity, even with their current restrictions, to come out of that, to expand to new markets, to understand technology, to interact with buyers across the world, within India, within different cities, to understand sensibilities. I think that's key. And yes, people are willing to spend. It's about showing them the right product. It's about, like I said, sensitizing them. It's about merging the gap between their current perception of crafts in India and what it actually is. Crafts in India were mostly patronized by empires across the world. So, for example, Rajiv ji spoke about how Indian pieces of jewelry uh, have been always coveted across the world. People from all over the world want Indian jewelry. The fact is that we, as a country, have to realize that we have all of it here, we have access to all of it. We just need to um, give it the boost and the visibility that it requires. And
Right.
that goes for the artisans as well, visibility to the artisans as well.
I must take this one question that has come from the US. Money Abraham has asked this question. The USA has tax exemption for artisans producing products like carpets, etc. Rajiv ji, I must tell you that I'm really disappointed because when I go down to the interiors of the country and talk to artisans, one of the biggest challenges that while there are many stops, while there are many kind of schemes to help artisans, they don't have any kind of leeway or let up in all the GST papers, all the taxation. I mean, they are really burdened with that. And I've been asked, what is this government doing for us? I mean, do you think we are important? I mean, I've actually faced that question when we go and meet these artisans. Is that a big, loophole in the way we are looking at artisans and artists?
You are right. This is very unfortunate. Last few years, when GST started, they started taxing crafts. There was no tax in Rajasthan, or must be in Gujarat also. Similarly, for the textile, there was no sales tax before. When the GST regime came, first they gave 18% tax. Then we sent memorandums, representations, or associations. Then they reduced it to 12%. And then you remember in Surat, there was a big strike about GST, and they reduced to 5%, but the elections were in Gujarat. So this is all, you're absolutely right. The small craftsmen sitting in the village, how can they they don't have formal education, so many forms, and GST is a very, very difficult, complex tax system. So this should be completely out of the craft, should be out of the GST regime. I agree with you, and I always talk about it. I'm very vocal for this. Yes.
Right. But having said which, I think in history and when you talk about culture, the government does play a very important role. It is the role of really taking care and nurturing segments. And I think in that sense, the Emporiums have done a fabulous job, Kakuli. You work very closely with Gurjari, for instance. The kind of support it gave artisans. We worked with a lot of emporiums, for example, in Bengal, etc. They're doing some really, really good work. So, what are the lessons from the work that has already been done? What are the kind of interventions that have worked and that can be replicated?
In Gurjari, we used to procure all the artisans. This is the all the corporated like handloom handicraft sector showrooms. We used to give them a platform to sell their product. So that is the main purpose of these corporations, state corporations. So when we go to select or procure their craft, we always see the same kind of product they are making, and there's a requirement of to see these state emporiums also. When you go inside any state emporiums, it is not that good like the Fab India or Good Hearth kind of showroom. We really need to see to relook these showrooms where the customers are going to and buying the things. Another, like for the young generation, I think all this young generation are not going to buy anything from the state emporiums. How to attract these customers, these young generations? So we have to think about the product, because we cannot tell the artisans to make that kind of product. We have to think whatever they are making and giving a different look to that product. As a designers, we can think that, like for example, I have done one project with them, and my main target was that to how to give a new look to the existing Gujarat craft. So the Bhuj shawl, I cannot say the Bhujodi shawl and make a garment or the running yardages, because they have their traditional looms and that has some kind of limitations. So using those shawls only, I have converted those shawls to a garment by the zero wastage process. So these kind of things, for attracting the new generation, we have to think for these.
Right. Have to wrap up. Right. We have to really rethink the way we look at craft, and really to celebrate the legacy, we have to take some, strategic initiatives really to reorient our own understanding and perception of the way we look at Indian art. So I'm going to wind up this discussion with each one of you, and we always do this, telling me about the one big idea you have, one big challenge you think we need to match up to really celebrate India's legacy? So, Rajiv, I'm going to come to you first. What is the
So,
one single most
so
important?
continuing my earlier point, government policies should be craft friendly. I deal with gold and silver, and there are millions of craftsmen in this country, goldsmith, silversmith. But there's 16% import duty on gold, 16% duty on silver. When the gold is 5,000 rupees a gram, so 1,000 rupees it is more expensive than Dubai or Bangkok. Why customer will come and buy a product in India? The policy should be like that because it is not hampering only the jeweler, but it is for the small silversmithing goldsmith sitting in a small town making jewelry for a jeweler. He cannot make, he has no work. So government policy should be much more craft friendly.
Sure.
And when I see the craft tradition, I always think, is it the history of beauty or beauty of history? Indian crafts are so rich and varied.
Right. Archana?
I think the change needs to be us. We need to start seeing craft in its true form, for its true beauty, and for the actual amount of work that goes into it and the diversity of it that we have. We need to start treasuring it. We need to start patronizing it. We need to start appreciating it and truly understanding the gold mine that we are sitting on as a country. And I don't think there's any other country that can come even close.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Kakoli?
A very strong message to all the young designers through this wonderful platform that they have to think about the product diversification to sustain the craft by without losing our own traditional.
Right. So, like everything around heritage, the idea behind this show is really to showcase what we have, to talk about the challenges, and what are the tangible steps that we need to take to really make a change. You'd be amazed to know that even though we don't really recognize them as such, but the art and craft segment still constitutes the second largest employment arena after agriculture in India. Just see that as a proportion and look at the number of artisans out there who are carrying on centuries old legacies and are facing such challenges that they've been facing for so many years. It's time we made a change and we made a difference. And I think, like Archana said, it starts with each one of us. So, Kakoli, Rajivji, and Archana, thank you so much for being part of Heritage Matters. And really enjoyed this session and look forward to many more discussions on India's arts and crafts, which we really need to celebrate. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.